Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Be the Wolf. Today, I am here with Ashley Jordan. She's the author of The Unhappy Achiever, Rejecting the Good Girl Image and Reclaiming the Joy of Inner Fulfillment. Now, those of you that listen or watch regularly know that being the wolf is all about being the truest, most authentic self. And so I think a lot of us, especially women, grew up with the good girl image. For boys, it was probably the equivalent would be the be strong and good provider image. But that isn't necessarily who we are. And although it may be an aspect of who we are, good, kind, nice, it isn't the whole truth. And if we're not allowed to be the whole truth, we're denying ourselves the joy, the safety, the freedom that comes from being strong, being powerful. And on top of that, we deny the world our gifts. Because our gifts, often some of our most powerful gifts, lie in the aspects of ourselves that we've hidden away. And so, Ashley, before we get started and dive into your particular story, can you tell us just a little snippet about what it is that you do?
Sure. So, you know, we all have superpowers, right? And for me, communication has always been something that's come naturally to me. And so I've realized I consider myself more than anything now a storyteller, right? And I always say I use my own journey and my own personal stories through writing, through speaking, through workshops to help illuminate the paths of others, right? Because the beautiful thing about storytelling, the reason it's an ancient art form is because although we all walk different paths with unique circumstances, no human experience is truly unique. So when people are brave enough or courageous enough to tell their own heartfelt, authentic stories, we're able to see aspects of ourselves in those stories, right? And find hope, inspiration, and healing. And so that's what I do. I share my own story of what I call unbecoming, right? Of finding the wholeness within, uncovering, unearthing the wolf in me, my most authentic, badass, truest self, and peeling back all of the layers that obscured who I was when I was born. Because I really think that's what it's about. The paths that we walk, it's not about becoming something you already are. It's
Yeah.
just about unearthing that from everything that obscured it along the way.
I love what you said about storytelling because one of the reasons I like to share stories, in my individual podcast where it's just me, I often share stories from my own life. And why I like to bring people like yourself on to share stories is because our mind actually learns through story and metaphor better than it does in any other way. And there are points where we can transform somebody's life just by sharing our story. And the other thing about story is that it meets people where they're at. So I may be on this particular part of my journey, and maybe I've evolved to a level 8. Not that anything is higher or lower, whatever, but just say I'm at a level 8 and somebody's listening to my story at a level 5. They're going to hear something, they're going to find something, some aspect of it is going to resonate with them. And then when they reach a level 6 or a level 7, they can hear the same story, and another aspect of the story will resonate and shift them. And so there is beauty and power in story on so many levels because we can revisit the stories and gain more understanding, deeper understanding as we ourselves grow.
Absolutely. I think, I always say that healing is like an onion, right? You peel back one layer and then the next layer is ready and waiting, right? And so
Right,
it's the
right,
same with
right.
stories. Like when you read a story the first time,
The
you'll
first
find the resonance in it. But when you go back and read it another time, it may take on a whole different meaning based on where you're at on your journey, right? There may be things that you couldn't connect to in that story before that suddenly have deeper resonance and meaning for you because of what you've experienced. So that's why, even as an author, the old unhappy achiever version of me used to read every book from start to finish. Now I usually have 3 books going at once, and, I'll read there are times where sometimes I'll read a book from start to finish, sometimes I'll read a part of a book, put it away, and then I'll come back to it, like, a year later. It took me, I think, 3 years to finally read The Alchemist. I'm the only person on the planet who hadn't read The Alchemist, and I just read it a few months ago, and it had so much more meaning for me than it would have had I read it when I bought it.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's the beauty of storytelling, you know?
Yeah. There is something about that divine timing as well. Yeah. So, on that vein of storytelling, tell us your story. Let's go into your story from being that place, being the person who was the unhappy achiever.
So, like so many women, I think I learned early on to be good. I learned, I think that I struggled to feel and to receive the maternal love and nourishment that I was craving even as a young child.
What
And
did,
I see that.
what did that look like for you?
So I think, and I say this with so much compassion. My relationship with my mother is the best it's ever been in my life now, but I always say every woman is another woman's child, right? And so it's very difficult for most of us to give what we ourselves never received, right?
Mm.
Can we show our children a love that we have not known ourselves, that we didn't receive from our own parents? And so for me, I think it's hard to describe it in action as much as it was just deeply felt. Like it just didn't, I craved a level of unconditional love and nurturing that I did not have.
So, one of the things I really wanted to mention, you said that thing about every mother is somebody else's daughter. And that really struck me because I was just thinking earlier today, and I begged and I got it under the condition that I take really good care of the cat. But as I look back, I was a terrible cat mom. I didn't feed the cat regularly. For photographs, I would do these things. And I realized that, oh shit, I wasn't a good cat mom because I didn't know how to be a mom because my mom didn't do any of those things for me.
Mm.
So there, to your point, it's like we learn how to love through our parents as our first indication of love. And when we go out in the world, like me as the kid who wanted that cat, I wanted to love on that cat. I wanted to feel the love back from the cat. I wanted all of that thing because I loved animals so much. But I didn't know how to actually care for that love because I had never been shown. And so if we go down and it just carries down in that same way.
Yes, it does. And I think the part that we really get stuck on in this is feeling like we should have had the perfect parent, the perfect mother. And again, that is another, I think, aspect of the good girl, right? Is the good girls grow up to be good women, good mothers, good wives.
Mhm.
And the idea of the good mother is that she is a perfect mother,
Yeah.
right? And in an era of Pinterest and Instagram and everything, I think that's even gotten magnified in its own way. And the reality is, and And it's a relief to realize there is no such thing, right? We can no more be perfect mothers than we can be perfect people. We are perfectly imperfect and in every possible way. And that's okay. That's how we learn, that's how we grow. And so realizing like nobody had the perfect parent, no matter what it looked like,
Yeah.
that doesn't exist. So we have, when we start to see our mothers as human beings, right? We are able to start to find compassion for them. We're able to start to find unconditional love. Doesn't mean we have boundaries. Often that almost always that accompanies more boundaries than we ever had with them, which is like which is the irony, right? And the beauty, I think. And so the other thing I say is the idea of the perfect mother and the idea that, you know, you didn't have it. And like that really keeps you stuck. But I think what helps us heal is to say, no, like my mother was no more a perfect mother than I will be, right? I will learn. Maybe I'll do things a little differently based on what I've learned through my experience with my mother. Um, but it's also that instead of waiting for our mothers to be the mothers we hoped they would be, that we can become more empowered by being the mothers to ourselves we hoped our mothers would be. How can I give myself the things that I did not receive? And so for me, just putting my hands on my heart and saying the things to myself that I wished my mother would have said was one of like the most healing exercises of my life. Talking to myself, that version of me at 5 who never heard those things that she needed to hear,
Right.
right? Like we can reparent ourselves now. We don't have to wait for someone to change or to be different. We can give ourselves all of the things that our parents couldn't give us.
Yeah. And so as you started to do that, well, before that, did you have an awakening, an epiphany that you were living this mask, this version of yourself that wasn't true before you started getting to the reparenting thing?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think you know, the journey unfolds when you are unmasking. You'll be called to examine anything, any relationship in your life that is inauthentic, right? And so my relationship with my family was just one aspect of my life. There was also career, there was also a marriage, there was also friendships, right? And so to your point, like what did I feel sort of before that journey began? What I felt like was that I had a life that I was told would make me happy. I had
Mhm.
everything. It was picture perfect. I had the dream house, the cars, the husband, the kids, the job, the accolades, the degrees, everything. And yet something inside was like there must be something more. Why don't I feel the way I was told I would feel? And
Right.
it's like this little niggle, that's what I call it, like,
Yeah.
deep down that's like, "There's something more." And then you think, "Well, I must be crazy. I was told that this would make me happy,
Right.
right? I have a life that on the outside looks enviable, but, you know, it was externally perfect, inwardly broken."
Yeah.
And that's why it wasn't about the life I created externally. I couldn't find peace within that because I hadn't found peace within me. I didn't even know who I was, and I didn't even know that I didn't know who I was, you know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, I see this all the time. I mean, it's my life story. It's most of my clients' life story. It's like whatever it is, the rules that they followed to get the life. For some people, it's, a big corporate job with da la 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 la. For some people, it's, a shit life because their rules were that they couldn't outshine their parents and their parents kind of had a shit life. So it's kind of set, usually what I've found, by what the expectation of the parents, and not the expectations of what they say, but the expectations of what they do and how they live. And so you can tell all day long, go get the perfect life, right? The husband, the 2.5 kids, the nice career, go do all of that. And that's going to get you a great life. But if your parent or whoever is suggesting that you do that is living in a frequency of my life is shit. And so even if we have all the things that look so great on paper, it feels to our nervous system bad and wrong to do it differently than the people who raised us or who set the original framework for what was going to be the ideal thing for us.
Absolutely, because we're taught it should be enough, right? And we're taught, as women, that wanting more for yourself, that considering yourself at all is selfishness, right? And that is the biggest lie. It is not selfishness, it is called self care.
Yeah.
It is called self awareness. Um, it is called self love. And so I think for me, it was like, you should be happy with this, right? And so I think for women, answering the call to do what I've done in 5 years, which is to deconstruct every major aspect of the life that I built from the outside in, to rebuild one that aligns with who I authentically am from the inside out, is radical, right?
Yeah.
Leaving a husband who is a good man, a good father, for anything less than, physical abuse or infidelity is still really frowned upon. Like, it is an
Yeah.
unwritten rule, and it freaks people out for a woman to do that, for a woman to really say, I know this isn't right. I know this isn't all it could be or should be for both of us. And I'm going to take the biggest leap of faith of my life. And I'm going to follow my heart and do what it's calling me to do in a way that's undeniable, even though my head is terrified,
Yeah.
absolutely terrified. And even though I know I'm going to be walking through fire to do it.
Yeah, it's funny that you say walking through fire. And for those who know me, they know I do fire walks and I put on fire walks. So funny that you say walking through fire. One of the things that strikes me in that people think it's brave, people think it's crazy. People have all these opinions because they're not doing it. And I know for me, when I moved to New York at 40, people kept asking me, did you move here for a job? Did you move here for a partner? And I was like, "No, I just moved here because I always wanted to live here, and I decided to do what I wanted for once in my fucking life." And it was always this like, "Well, I don't get it," because people have this fear about stepping into what they truly want because it's not the thing that they were told would keep them safe. The husband, the house, the 2.5 kids was the thing that everybody was told would keep them safe. But here you are, like, walking away from somebody that it sounds like you don't hate. It like nothing horrible was happening. It was just not the right fit for you. It wasn't aligned. Just like leaving and moving across the country from San Francisco to New York was the right move for me. Staying in San Francisco wasn't aligned. And choosing that freedom or having that freedom within yourself, or even if you don't feel it yet, but doing it anyway, is a huge thing to be able to choose what you actually want in the face of what people think, what people say, because other people don't feel that inside of them or didn't have that little niggle that said, hey, there's more. Or maybe they did, but they kept pouring water on that little flame.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the thing, the people who were the most judgmental, right? The harshest with me when I left my marriage were the people who are the most insecure about their own marriages,
Mm,
right? And when somebody makes a choice that is different from the one we've made for ourselves, it is triggering for us, especially when we feel like maybe we should be making that choice for ourselves. When we are in true alignment with our paths and our lives, we
true
don't
alignment, true
care what
alignment, true.
anybody else is doing. We could care less, right? We don't feel
Relax.
threatened. But when somebody has made a choice that contradicts a choice that we've made for ourselves that maybe deep down we're not sure about, it's triggering, right? We have to judge them to justify our own journey. If we're in alignment, we don't have to judge anybody, right? We can simply say, like, I don't understand. I don't need to. I'm right with me. And I think that's the difference. But the word that you used that I love is freedom.
Mm, mhm.
And I think within every woman and every human being, there is a call. The deepest call isn't just to know love, right? And every aspect of our lives. I'm not just talking about romantic love.
Right.
I'm talking about love in every aspect of our lives. The deepest call is also to know freedom, right? To know a life on our own terms that aligns with our hearts, our souls, our spirit. And that for women is, I think, one of the deepest things is that so many of us don't feel free. I had this beautiful life, but it was like a gilded cage. Like I was in a mansion, but it felt like a cage, right? And now I can say I've built a life of love and joy in ways that are miraculous, like absolutely miraculous, from my relationship with my children to my family relationship, my relationship with my parents being the best it's ever been, to my friendships, like true sisterhood, unconditionally loving friendships, to my work. Like I love everything that I get to do on a daily basis, to my romantic partner, like the love of my life, like the absolute love of my life. It's like I pinch myself every day that this is my life, but I went through so
Yeah,
much.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about the mess, right? Because I know there's a lot of people listening who are in the mess. And so, like, when you first discovered that, what did you let go of, first of all? You let go of the husband, job?
No, so
Tell me
step
what,
1
yeah.
was job, was
Okay,
the
job.
death of my ego professionally. It went it went job, friendships, and then, marriage.
Okay, so let's start with the job. What was the first inkling? Like, when did you know? Like, what was going on within you when you knew that it was time to go, that this was not in alignment?
So, I would love to be l to tell you that, you know, that, like, one day I woke up and I was like, "Yeah, like, this isn't exactly what I'm supposed to be doing." It wasn't terribly far off, but it wasn't exactly what I was supposed to be doing. I was actually working in the social justice movement, and I was an activist, and I was writing political op-ed pieces, and I ended up having a moment where people who I had been, I look back on that and I still hold many of the same values, but from a much different place. I think I was very self-righteous, very egotistical, like
Mhm.
even if what I was advocating for was virtuous, the place it was coming from was no different than what I was advocating against. I just didn't know it, right? It's
Right.
like when we are, even when we are advocating for things that are just, if we are coming from a place other than love, we will create the same thing that we're trying to dismantle, right? It'll just
Yep.
be and
100%.
mhm. And so that is was the awakening and the realization that, like, when I started to have to really reckon with my own humanness, my own imperfection, my own blind spots, what I realized was I'm not good or bad, right? I'm marvelously mortal. That's what I am. And so when I had to look at the fact that I'm not good or bad, that the people who maybe didn't think like me, they couldn't be just good or bad too, right? It's far more complicated than that. And I had no right to label someone that, someone who's a stranger to me, just because we may share different views or values. And from that place, I started feeling I didn't want to lead with anger, right? I didn't want to lead with self righteousness. I wanted to lead with love. And in the space that I was working in at the time, I, showed up and started saying those things, and the people around me were like, "Who are you? Like, what's wrong with you?" Right?
Right.
And suddenly, this group, this organization that I had founded, I did not fit with anymore. Like, I had to leave my own group.
It's funny how that happens, and you're so right when we're talking about where we're coming from, and people don't realize the frequency that you make decisions from create outcomes of that same frequency. And I see it a lot. You see it in politics, you see it in activism, you see it where it's like, I'm fighting against this. You see it in parents, right? When it's conservative and the other becomes the rebel, but they end up, if you watch their lives play out to the very end, it ends up being the same. They have the same level of peace, they have the same level of love, they have the same level of uh, freedom and joy. And it's like, I'm going to rebel and do something different and go against everything that who I think is wrong, because you ended up with this shit life and your life is terrible and you're doing horrible things. So I'm going to do the complete opposite. And then you look at the end result, and the amount of the peace, love, joy, and freedom you have is exactly the same because it came from the same place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If we are sourced from the same place as that which we fight against, we will create the same place because the source, they're the same thing because the source is the same,
Yeah.
right? If you're operating from hate and anger, even if you succeed in your goals, you will then create another system operating from hate and anger. It's just different people will be in charge,
Yeah.
right?
It's I always say, I use this analogy a lot. It's like we all know the plot line of Romeo and Juliet, right? We've seen a million movies with the plot line of Romeo and Juliet, and we could argue how they're so different than Romeo and Juliet, but the plot line is exactly the same. And so we do that in our life. It's like, oh, I don't like this. Ah. And so now I'm going to go over here and do it totally different, but the plot line is exactly the same.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, my beloved always says, he says, we've lost the plot. We've lost the plot, right? It's exactly that. We get so caught up in other things that we lose the plot, right? So and so for me, realizing that this group that I was in, that we'd lost the plot. And and I think I tried to work within that for a while because, some of the people that I was working with were some of my best friends at the time, right?
Yeah.
Some of the closest people to me, but suddenly they're looking at me like, "Who are you? Like, where is Ashley Jordan?" Right? "We don't like this version of you. This is not this is not the agreement." And so really walking away from that was so difficult, and I lost friendships. And I think that sort of led to the next step of the journey, which was losing friends that I thought would be my friends forever, and feeling betrayed and realizing that our relationship wasn't truly authentic. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, it wasn't love. But then the beautiful thing about it, even though it was heartbreaking to me at the time, was that as soon as those relationships fell away, within 6 months, the truest relationships of my life came in, the truest friends, the truest sisters, my best, like, they taught me a sisterhood I'd never known existed, actually, that, like, the love between women, the sisterhood is just as fulfilling, just as soul nourishing as any romantic love could ever be. The expression is just different. The love
Yeah,
is the same.
it's true. And so I was going to ask you what was the next step. So you lost the job, you lost the friends, but then the next step is that opened up space to bring in things that actually felt good from a frequency of love.
Absolutely, because two things related to that point. One is your people can't find you if you're not living into your truest self,
Yeah.
right? You won't attract wolves if you're not being the wolf in your own life. They can't
Yeah.
see you,
Yeah,
right?
you're gonna attract beavers and woodpeckers and all these
Yes.
other things that are not you, and you're gonna be like, "Why the fuck do my relationships not feel fulfilling? Why the hell are my clients so sucky and they just don't seem to get what I'm trying to teach them? Why did like, yeah, it's so funny
Mhm.
how things we
Mhm. It's so it's like when you are living into your most authentic, truest self, into your heart, when you are the highest expression of yourself in the world, suddenly the people who are meant for you can find you because they can see you. They're like, oh, it's you, right? It is that they're able to recognize you. They can't recognize you when you're wearing a mask,
and
right?
what
How could they possibly?
yeah, and what did that open up for you putting the mask down? Like,
Well,
what
I mean,
was it easy? Was it hard? What happened in your mind? Were you overthinking? Were you worried? Like, tell us that part that nobody talks about.
so, and this is really a big part of why I wrote Unhappy Achiever is to talk about these journeys, right? And to show because they can be so lonely. Like there were so many points on my journey that felt so lonely, right? Because I didn't fit more and more. I didn't fit with the life and the people and the relationships that I had created for myself. And even the ones that, I had then that I have now are completely different. They have been transformed. So even the relationships that we keep die. They won't be the same. And that is we all deserve to be, and we are butterflies, but first we're going to have to be reduced to caterpillar consomme. And that's why I wrote the book, because for every woman on that journey in the darkest moment, I wanted them to feel like they're not alone. I wanted the book to read like a best friend's diary for these journeys, and so that they could see that they're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with them, right? And they're not selfish. They're not and that if one woman could find the courage to take this journey, to walk this path, then they can do it too, right?
Yeah,
And so I wanted them to see the parts that we don't talk about. It is so messy because you have to die a thousand deaths to yourself, to the old life you once knew. And what that looks like is different for every single woman.
yeah,
And that's why you will read my journey in my book, but I'll never give prescriptions. I can't
yeah.
because it's not every woman will be called to leave her marriage to do this. Many will evolve in partnership and their partners will evolve with them.
Well,
That
just like you said, the friendships that you kept transformed into something new. And I mean, if we look at, I always like to look at nature as a model. Like, nature is always transforming, it's always growing, it's always shedding, it's never stays the same. And so we are an aspect of nature. We try to control it with these mind things that we have. But if you look to it, it really does give us a pathway. And so if we're not evolving and growing, then there's the other option is that we're dying.
yes, if we're not evolving, growing, we're dead. Like we're a member of the living dead anyway. Like we are meant to feel as much aliveness in this life as possible. Like that
Yeah.
is like that's what that is the something more, right? Like there is no aliveness in doing the things you've always done if they're not working for you, right? If that if you haven't found that peace, that fulfillment, that joy, happiness is fleeting, but joy can be cultivated from the inside out. Love can be cultivated from the inside out. You can be in love every single day with your life. You do not need anybody else for that. And the more you cultivate that within, the more the irony is it just gets naturally reflected outside of you. It's
Yeah.
just a law, right? Like,
And so how does that feel? Like when you're creating the love from inside of you, the peace from inside of you, what is the comparison, the compare and contrast from where you were to where you are now?
where I was before, what I didn't have a relationship with myself.
Mm.
I did not even, I write about this in the book. I didn't, you know, what really cracked me open, I had first the transition in my career. And then I stumbled into, an unexpected trigger that sent 24 years of repressed traumatic grief crashing to the surface of my psyche. And so it took me from running around, right? Running through my life from one thing to the next, to literally on my knees overnight. And in that space of silence, of being so emotionally incapacitated that I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do any of the things I had always done. In that space of darkness, I started to find and see my light for the first time. And so that's the irony, right? Is that
I think that's really important what you said is that in that process, you started to access a bunch of repressed grief. And my experience with myself and my clients is that all those personas, all those masks are there to hide the repressed emotions that we don't have access to, that we stuffed down subconsciously or consciously to avoid processing because it was too overwhelming. It was too much. Like if anybody's experienced a big, overwhelming event as a little kid, that's enough to do it. And that could be so simple as getting lost in the grocery store. People think it has to be like I had lots of big crazy trauma, but people think it has to be this big crazy trauma. It could be something so simple as you had a parent who had anxiety. So they were unpredictable and inconsistent. You had a parent who had depression, also unpredictable, inconsistent. So those kind of things create these overwhelming emotions, and they're often too much for a little one. And until we have some instance in our life that cracks them open, usually it's crisis, that we don't actually move past that place and we don't get to open up and lose those masks, lose that identity of the good girl. And so I know for me and like my journey is I had to learn how to access those repressed emotions in order to break free from them. Because like I said, my stuff was so much that there was a lot there. But the gift in it is that I got to be able to help others do the same. And so you getting to share your journey is giving people permission to be like, holy shit, if I just cracked open this well of grief that has been buried inside my body for decades, it's okay that I can't get up off the floor. It's
ah,
okay.
beautiful. Exactly. It is okay. Like I always say, you know, I was conditioned to believe that my worth was tied to what I did, right? That who I was based on what I did, what I achieved, what I had. And the truth was, none of that was true. That's the lie. Our worth, our intrinsic value, our love is tied to our being. And everything you want to be, I always say, everything you were born to be, just unclench your fist and there it is. Like
Yeah.
it's right there. There's nothing you need to do except uncover that again, access it. It's there for you always. It doesn't go away ever. And that's the beauty. So for me, when I experienced that traumatic loss of my childhood sweetheart, on my 13th birthday, I
Mm.
closed my heart, right? Nobody knew how to handle a death like that. Nobody. My parents, nobody in our community. And so how could they steward me through that? They couldn't. So we didn't talk about it. And I think it also, my, young psyche was like, it hurts too much to love like that. I can't feel this or it'll kill me. I'm like, my heart is closed. And I closed it and I walled it off. And then when it was ironically cracked open by the same thing that compelled me to close it 24 years later,
Yep, that'll happen.
what I found in that space of grief, and I write about it in a chapter called Selah, which is my favorite word as it relates to grief, because Selah is actually a term from the Bible, the book of Psalms. And I'm not religious, but I am a deeply spiritual woman now. Um, but I loved that word as it relates to grief because the actual meaning isn't definitively known, but it's thought to be referred to like a breath, a beat. And
Mhm.
so I always say that, like, in that space of just tremendous grief, it was beautiful sadness. It was light in the darkness. Grief was the breath, the beat, the sacred pause that I needed to take to find myself, to come home to myself again. And so it wasn't grief that called me back to myself. Naturally, grief is love. And so it was love that called me back to myself again.
Yeah, and when you processed all those emotions, you were able to access that part of you that can truly love, like truly love again. And that's the benefit of when you have those dark nights of the soul, they are opportunities because if you can move through them in a different way than you originally moved through them, what you can access more of is yourself, which gives you more access to your love, to your peace, to your joy, to your freedom. How can people find you?
So they can find me on my website, Jordan, JORDAN.com. They can also go to unhappyachiever.com, or they can find me on Instagram at Ms. Ash Jordan.
Awesome. Now, I have one last question for you.
I'm excited.
What does it mean to you to be the wolf?
I love this question because it is something I say all the time. This is the whole purpose of why I'm here, why I wrote this book, why I do the work that I do. Being the wolf is about living into your truest, most badass, authentic, loving, free, liberated self in the world, right? And what that looks like is going to be different for every single one of us, and that's the beauty. It's supposed to be, right? There are no cheat codes, there can't be copycats. Every path has to be uniquely guided by your own intrinsic wisdom and your own, path of discovery and your own gifts. And so that's what I that's what being the wolf means to me.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you, Ashley, for sharing your story and your spirit with us today. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And remember, when you operate from the truth of who you are, humanity evolves. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank